The mockery.
Denmark will shoot first and ask questions later.
The Home Ministry needs to take an action.
Tariffs and economic sanctions. Welcome to the evening show by The Explicit. On Wednesday, China reported a record trade surplus of around $1.2 trillion in 2025. Even after Trump's tariffs and intensified geopolitical pressure, China performed quite well. It happened because the country decided to diversify its consumer market to Southeast Asia, Africa, and Latin America, which led the pressure to deal with the Trump administration to just go down. In October 2025 itself, China exported worth $305 billion and imported worth $215 billion, maintaining a positive trade balance of $90.1 billion. The top commodities of export remained telephones, integrated circuits, computers, cars, and others. It exported mostly to United States, Vietnam, Japan, and South Korea. The rare earth exports in 2025 further surged to their highest level since 2014. In the meantime, it has leverage over Washington as the negotiations squabbled over soybean purchases, TikTok's operation, and a potential Boeing aircraft deal. But the Trump's challenge to China is not going to go down that easily. One of the solutions that Chinese firms have found to do business easily is to set up overseas production hubs in countries that provide lower tariff access to the United States. Though President Trump tried threatening another 25% of tariffs due to its trade with Iran, he's now considering opening up the American market again for the Chinese goods. You see, President Trump is quite deterring in his stance, but nothing could be done here, as he is the man who is not sure about his wife's and whether or not it is appropriate to talk about her intimacies publicly, and a man who finds his daughter voluptuous. Another example of deterring here can be seen in Iran's case. At one moment, President Trump was considering having diplomacy with Iran since there have been no movements of American military, and now he is ready to change the entire regime of Iran. Personally, I feel that he's acting right here, as there have been several atrocities against the peaceful protesters. So far, around 20,000 people died in these protests, as a video shows bodies lined up at the morgue. The atmosphere in Tehran is extremely heavy and intense. A few hours from now, Irfan Sultani was to be executed in public today, as he was linked to anti-Khamenei protest. The protesters can be executed as they are moved in trials. Though President Trump has threatened possible military strikes in this case, Iran is ready to give a counter-response to the US. Seeing Iran in such dreadful condition, the Middle East is on the fire, as the US asks the military personnel to depart bases. It is quite painful for the Muslim Brotherhood to act against Iran. The EU has already predicted that Iran can have a changed regime. Iran has previously declared that America is its biggest enemy, and through the deadly 9/11 attack, it proved its core motive. But somehow Iran forgot to address it, at least appropriately. Talking of Europe, Greenland is on the US's radar for a long time. But since none of the previous presidents have been able to crack it, President Trump took the work into his own hands. Of course, to hide his mistakes on an island, you know what I'm talking about. President Trump has reiterated again that Greenland is necessary for US security and that the invasion can happen in weeks or months. He's ready to compromise the NATO alliance for it. And why wouldn't he? I mean, the country is just running by capitalism, and you can expect these things. Speaking of capitalism, the US tech bigwigs like Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Sam Altman, and others are already planning to use the island to mine for rare earth minerals and to set up a private town called Freedom City. Like, guys, you haven't even taken it in your own hands. The EU is consistent with its military drills to secure Greenland. Local Europeans have already given their kind of retaliatory measures to impose sanctions and put tariffs on American goods, which could result in massive loss to the US economy. But what I noticed here in all these burlesque is the response by Italian PM Meloni, who called the military action legitimate in the case of Venezuela, but called it unacceptable when it came to Greenland. However, the senators in the United States have introduced a bill that aims to prevent President Trump from seizing a NATO territory. The bipartisan NATO Unity Protection Act would bar the Department of Defense and the Department of State from using funds to blockade, occupy, annex, or otherwise assert control over the territory of any other NATO member state. But can the bill be passed? Even if the bill is passed, the NATO alliance would not be same, as the Europeans believe in once was a warning, twice was a lesson, anything more is taking advantage. Coming to Trump's friends, both Hillary and Bill Clinton have dodged the testimony in Congress since August 2025. So far, only 1% of the total Epstein files have been released by the US Department of Justice, and they mention Bill Clinton's name several times. Not only that, but Clinton appeared in several pictures at Epstein Island, released by the US Department of Justice after Congress. One of the pictures shows him swimming in a pool, and another shows him lying on his back in probably a hot tub. You see, a criminal always holds trophies, and these pictures are Clinton's trophies. Clinton was photographed several times with Epstein in 1990s and early 2000s. A spokesperson have even acknowledged that the former president took 4 trips with staff on Epstein private plane in 2002 and 2003 and met with Epstein in New York in 2002. It looks like if Ted Bundy were a politician, the DOJ wouldn't be so quick to execute him. The last news of my segment is the effect on American citizens due to President Trump's interest rate cut on credit cards. Last week, when President Trump demanded that the credit card companies cut the interest rates, several banks and finance companies bundled their credit card loans into bonds and sold them to investors. Now, since the income from these loans is low, the lenders injected capital into these trusts that issue the bonds. According to JP Morgan, this can affect American citizens' lives really negatively, as in 2009 global financial crisis, most bank card companies injected capital into their securitizations and sold the loans to the trust at lower cost. For bonds backed by bank-issued credit cards, a 10% gap would cause excess spread, which was also seen in the global financial crisis.
Donald Trump will complete his first year in his second term as the President of the United States. And throughout this time, he did so much harm to the country's foreign policies that I don't think it would be wrong to refer to the USA as a bubble. A bubble that contains the Republicans' ego, so much so that as it inflates, it shadows the opportunities of its allies, even the closest one. Take Canada, for example. After the uncertainty of Canadian exports to the USA, Mark Carney landed in China, an official visit that remained due since 2017. Call it walking on thin ice, especially after the two countries headlined their strained diplomatic relations after the Canadian government arrested a Chinese business executive who was wanted in the USA. And in retaliation, China jailed 2 Canadians on espionage charges. The two countries are said to make key commitments that can improve trade, cultural exchanges, and people-to-people relations. However, amid these fancy and crucial words are the red lines that Canada is looking to take note of, such as its position on Taiwan, defense, and critical minerals. Some of the areas that can see ease of market if the meat goes as planned, obviously, are energy and climate, including agriculture, reminding me of the marijuana Canada grows and how even it is not helping the officials to dodge the Trump trouble. Now imagine if this man could make the resting leaders work and push them to complete tasks due for Lord knows how long. What impact he must have created on the American citizens. The protests against an ICE agent shooting that killed an American citizen in Minneapolis have only flamed up in the last few days. The reason is the resignation of top prosecutors across the Justice Department. As per the reports, the resignation came after the Department of Justice declined to run an investigation into the ICE agent who shot Renegade. Seeing the sensitivity of the situation and how the officials who have resigned spoke of early resignation but cut short their time after the attack and lack of justice to the victim, It is, as per me, not wrong to call it a political conspiracy, which of course doesn't end here. The FBI didn't even investigate the ICE agent and put every effort into digging into Renegade after taking over the evidence and the entire investigation. Following this, the protests have only rose and more than 1,000 customs and border protection agents are now deployed in the city. While the Democrats are against the Trump administration and have even sued them, calling it a, I quote, federal invasion, unquote, the White House continues its illegal tactics, reasoning to catch the Somali immigrants while disturbing other citizens without any criminal records. I don't think the Department of Justice is abiding by the name, and since the Department of Defense is now the Department of War, it should be renamed to the Department of Selective Justice, or Trump's values, seeing how he doesn't believe in laws but his values, coming from a felon and pedophile. It is quite chilling, to be honest. Shifting the focus to the EU, the government of the United Kingdom is looking to permit a Chinese mega embassy, but the MPs stage an opposition, reasoning that its presence will promote transnational repression of Hong Kongers in the UK and promote espionage. Citing a report by The Telegraph, the embassy plans include secret rooms and a concealed chamber next to the cables carrying data to London City, since the plans also hints at the Chinese intention of demolishing and rebuilding the outer wall of the chamber, and knowing it is just beside the fiber optic cables, it can lead to the access of millions of emails and financial data of the British citizens to the Communist Party. I have two opinions here. Why don't the British politicians treat Islamists as similar agents of disturbance in their country? Through other ways, obviously. And the second one is, when will we have an opposition in our country that literally understands such a sincere problem and talk about it in the parliament instead of feeding on their favorite dishes after the session or bringing a dog to the building? A similar drama erupted just prior to the BMC election when Raj Thackeray, a politician without a single seat in the Legislative Assembly of Maharashtra, abused BJP leader K. Annamalai and even threatened and questioned his presence in the state. Almost sarcastic how he gave these statements in a public assembly when instead he should have asked them why they did not vote for him before. Otherwise, that'd be a different scenario, giving him a presence in parliament as an elected member at least. If only we'd be blessed to have the drama limited to the national borders, but no. Pakistan and Saudi Arabia have welcomed another member, Turkey, to their defense alliance, forming what many say an Islamic NATO. On the contrary, I call it temporary peace of mind. Turkey has already supported Pakistan in its mischiefs, as signaled during the Operation Sindoor. And when we talk of Saudi Arabia, everyone knows its importance to fund Pakistan through various means, such as giving loans and then, upon its non-payment, considering the JF-17 jets for loans. Scrutinizing it, has even NATO worked well till now, seeing how Turkey has experienced being a member of that? And while I really think Saudi must keep up the work of showing the world its real face, fund the Saudi, fund the war, here's another card from India, the Eastern Triangle, surrounding Turkey through Armenia, Greece, and Cyprus. It's time you think about fighting your own battles first. That's it for today. And remember, this is the evening show by The Explicit, running from Monday to Thursday, bringing an opinionated take on national and international affairs. Subscribe for the timely updates. Good night.